get out of confusion and get into thriving. So we'll talk about that too.
Welcome to the Jake Giffen Podcast.
We're good to go, Larry. When you say get out of confusion and into thriving, what are you finding right now? Who are you serving most right now as far as demographic, I guess?
Well, let's just get that turned off. Okay. I'm retired, but the book is based on over 50 years of experience in working with nonprofit Christian leaders and organizations.
Yep.
And their financial partners. And I focused on the major donor side of the nonprofits. So we were working with, not small gifts, but I did small gifts at one time. But my focus was always helping them do significant giving, not just
like corporate level kind of stuff. Like, hey, I need a big tax write-off. Who can I call? I'm call Larry. He's got somebody I can send money to.
Well, yeah, that's what they thought. That's what they thought. And then it'd come back and say, that's not the way it's going to work.
That's not the way it works.
But no, but the book was written for helping people discover, purpose and igniting abundance in their life when they think the life is over or I'm stuck and I don't know which way to go. I would maybe even mix the illustration in our conversation, but I think many people they look at life as a bumper car experience in a carnival, and they're just being slammed by jarred around by other cars, other circumstances, and they don't realize that there's a real purpose of them being here in the first place, and they just exist until electricity goes off.
Well, kind of like life is just happening to them. They don't know how to get.
They don't know they're even here for a reason. They just are existing. And I'm saying, no, you are here for a reason, and this is not by accident that you showed up.
Yeah. So when they come to you and they're struggling, they're on a struggle bus, man. They don't know up from down. They don't know left from right. Do they know they're confused? Do they know they're lost or they're stuck, or they just happen to meet you and you're like, hey, man, I can help you out of this milieu that you're in if you want it.
Well, I think that what most people have is a confused reason as to why they were here in the first place. And it's the same old question of why am I here? Where am I going? What am I all about? Age-old questions. And in my early experience in the 70s, I had to do a study that ended up defining what we call stewardship lifestyle stewardship. Mm-hmm. And the lifestyle is managing somebody else's affairs and being here on purpose to support the one that owns you. Yeah. In other words, it was either in the serfdom period, it was the landlord of a company or a landlord of property. And you don't own anything, but you manage everything.
Right.
And how to kind of help you be a good manager and wake up today thriving and enjoying the day rather than I think I'm just living another day and existing. So the book was created out of an assignment, but it's been transformative the content's been transformative for lots of people. I wrote another book of similar focus in the 80s, but this is an edition, a book that came out for the Z generation, the younger crowd, the under 40s, because they're as confused as the ones that I originally was talking to 35, 40 years ago.
Well,
and I am in the retirement mode. But I thought, well, this is something that I can do to help contribute to the confusion that many young adults feel. They're living in instant gratification era, and life is not instant gratification. They don't understand the laws of the harvest. That's a key thing.
Yeah, for those who don't understand it, what are the laws of the harvest?
Well, the law of the harvest is watching the farmer and watching how he takes care of the fruit of preparing for a harvest. Mm-hmm. And it takes 6 to 9 months to get ready for a good harvest in most cases. Now, there are some exceptions out there. I know of one tree in Hawaii that produces fruit 12 months of the year. But that's an exception to anything because it's always producing fruit, and they harvest every single month.
No kidding. That's pretty good.
But most of the cases, the law of the harvest said you go to the job of preparing, of caring, and eventually you prepare for the harvest. And then the harvest is always multiplied And then there's a good illustration that Jesus gave in one of his parables about a master taking off and giving, and then they'll talk about the harvest, they'll talk about the produce. I mean, a lot of things even in scripture, because the culture was very agricultural in its day.
Yeah.
Everything was out there, and he spoke in language that they could understand. But I illustrate it sometimes. I've got a orange tree in my neighbor's backyard right next to me. And it takes 12 months a year. We get one harvest in January or February. And it starts with blossoms probably in February or March. And it takes cultivation, and the tree is hurting right now because it was not watered and cared for correctly a couple of years ago.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, you see, you've got to care for the harvest. And that is one of the principles behind it, is understanding the law of the harvest. Well, to many kids, they think drive-through at McDonald's or In-N-Out is how fast things should happen. But you never realize that there's time and time that goes into all of that. So, I get into those kind of things too. But, I started off managing 2 people when I left that particular job. 12 years later, I had 7 departments, 125 people. So there's management, there's stress that comes with growing something like that. I was never the end-all person. I was not the top dog on the pile.
Mm-hmm.
I was a facilitator making things happen.
Yeah.
But I was entrusted with the responsibility, and I ran with it. So I'm not the one that did it all. I'm the one that lived in the day-to-day journey.
That was your stewardship, right, Larry? I mean, that's kind of like what you're talking about in regards to managing somebody else's resources or managing somebody. Besides the fact that, we have a planet out here that we are designed to and given the responsibility to subdue and manage the way that God would manage it.
Well, you go back to Genesis, the 2nd chapter, Jake, and that's the same thing. God put Adam and Eve in a garden, and he never said, it's your garden, I'm leaving you alone here. It was, I want to come and walk with you. I want relationship with you, but I want you to manage my stuff, even to the point that he was assigned to name the animals. And so he had full responsibility to manage on behalf of the owner. Mm-hmm. And of course, he blew it in chapter 3, and there's a whole story. The rest of the Bible is about redemption coming out of that.
Still living
the issue was I made a bad stewardship choice, and I had to live with the consequences.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people out there today, they don't realize that there's consequences to bad behavior. They just want to get it fixed.
Or no behavior, right? Like, it's like you were saying, there's this instant gratification situation going on where nobody's used to waiting for the results of their labor. So they don't put anything, they're not willing to put in the work for 6, 12 months, 2 years, 5 years, or whatever it is to reap some harvest down the road. They want the harvest right now.
If it's not now, they'll switch gears and go do something else.
Man, I resonate.
So
that's totally me, man.
And I'm not I would never call myself into the green side of the ecology of the world, mm-hmm. but we have a huge responsibility to pick up after ourselves. And when I go out for a walk, I see trash and pick it up because somebody else blew it by leaving it.
Yep.
But it doesn't mean I am responsible to pass it over. I need to be taking care of the place that we live in.
Well, yeah.
But I'm going to the extreme that we're going to collapse if I don't do a good job of that, although he expects me to do a good job of that. So my responsibility makes me a good steward of the earth, but I'm not doing it because I think there's something magical about the earth other than who made it as an owner.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's not an earth is deity kind of thing that is the reason. I mean, Christians above all other people should be should be the most passionate about taking care of what we've been given in this habitat, right? It's like, we should be the ones that are most passionate about clean air and clean water and clean everything and laying a foundation.
And if they were a good steward, they would be thinking that way.
Yeah. So what do you think other than they want immediate gratification, that's got to be like probably top 3 reasons why anybody is a bad steward, right? Is because they just want it now?
Well, I think they don't even think they're stewards. They think they own it. I think the problem comes back to a misconception of what the world has sold us on what stewardship is. In my experience, I'm a preacher's kid, and my dad preached on stewardship about 2 or 3 times a year, and it was always about money and getting people to give to the church. Mm-hmm. And I thought, even at the time I was assigned the job, I equated stewardship and money as equals.
Yeah.
When you talk about stewards, you want money. In fact, the reason I was in the meeting and got the assignment is that the organization that I was with was wanting to raise $1 billion for the mission of the organization, and it had never been done before in that realm with the nonprofit Christian organization. Yeah. The only ones that had ever come close to it than Harvard or Stanford, and they were raising endowment funds more than they were raising cash. It's a very different thing when you're working on endowments.
Yeah, they're raising to hoard.
Never been done before. So the idea was, could we even raise that kind of money? We had a feasibility study done, and they said, yes, you can raise the money, but you have got to teach lifestyle stewardship. Otherwise, you're going to create competition among many people thinking you're trying to get it all. But if you teach lifestyle stewardship, you're going to be multiplying the acreage of the harvest.
Yeah.
And everybody will appreciate what you're doing, and you would not be seen as competition. Well, the organization at that time was not interested in starting something new and a new teaching focus. And there was a little bit of an argument going on. We can't do this. Well, you've got to do this, or you cannot really raise the funding. And somebody in the room said that day, well, let's just assign that to Larry and let him figure out what we mean by lifestyle stewardship.
If anybody can do it.
I had a little bit of success in the area of fundraising at that time, and I was doing well enough that I was invited to the meeting, but I sure was not anywhere near, I was not a leader in the organization. Mm-hmm. But I got assigned a task, and in retrospect thinking, the task was, let's assign it to Larry and move on. And no one ever asked me 8 weeks later, nobody said, what is the results of what you're studying? What's your proposal? And I'm a high responsibility person, and I said I'd do it. So I figured I'll get some of my team leaders that I had developed. And I said, we're going to figure this out together, and it might help us do our job better. It wasn't really about the assignment now. It was like, what was meant by that, and how could that help us be more effective in getting generosity from people? And that is actually how the book content came about, is a study that we did. And then we saw that if we implemented that philosophy in our own operation, we would raise more funding, and we raised tens of millions of dollars over the next 10, 12 years. And the principles behind that have gone on to help many organizations. Mm-hmm. They don't have donors now; they have financial partners, and it's a view of thinking, and as well as how you communicate to those people.
Is that nomenclature? Is that predominantly a result of the work that you did in that organization and in that book?
Yes, I would say it has a lot to do with it. Now, I think people picked up on it. It's probably spread in other languages.
Yeah, I've heard it. Yeah. So I'm looking at the guy who invented it.
This is 1972.
Okay.
And at that time, I was successful in fundraising, Jake. Mm. I had no idea what fund development was. And fundraising always includes an exchange.
Okay.
If you give me money, I'll give you something. And so the exchange is, if you give me money to the animal shelter, mm-hmm. I'll give you a T-shirt.
So it's reciprocal.
It's a reciprocal thing. If you come and play golf for us, we'll serve you dinner and we'll give you an award. Yeah. And you'll give us $500-$600 to play golf, and you don't even know the name of the organization you're playing with that day because you did the same thing 2 weeks ago for somebody else. So it's an exchange going on all the time. My father-in-law was with a huge bank at one time up in the Northwest. And annually they would have the Seahawks play golf with all the leaders in the bank. And they were making big commitments for a community charity. But the exchange was, we get to play 2 hours or 3 hours of golf with one of the Seahawk football players. It had really nothing to do with the charity. It had all to do with the relationship of playing golf with one of the players.
Sure.
That happened. Oh, that happens all the time in culture.
Yeah.
There's nothing sinful about fundraising, but it's very difficult to keep going. And then we could get into the place. I responded to an email this morning where an organization was intimidating me because I had not signed back up for my annual commitment. We can't believe we've not heard from you yet. What did we do wrong? Apparently, we have there's a disagreement. Aren't you going to sign up today so that we're back in sync? And I thought, you're just intimidating me. And I went back and I said, when you stop intimidating me, I'll consider another gift.
When you stop trying to manipulate me and intimidate me, sure, man, I'm
It
all
was
on
a
board.
manipulation. I was being manipulated around guilt.
Yeah,
Jake.
for sure.
But that goes on all the time. Now,
Mhm.
I'm not saying anything in there. I don't like the tactic that was used on me this morning, but fundraising is not, quote, sinful stuff.
Yeah, right.
But fund development gets the person off of being a donor. A donor is one that gets stuck in the arm with a needle, gives blood, and gets a sugar cubie as a thank you. And maybe it's a cookie or a cube.
Yep.
And we talk about we need donors to come in and do this. And there's a little bit of pain in giving blood
Sure.
because they're not focusing on the life that you give a person by giving blood. They're focusing on them extracting blood from you. So blood banks are all the time trying to get you to come in to do something that's painful for the benefit of somebody else.
Sure.
Well, if you're doing it right, you can say, this is how you're going to give life to people, and we really need your help in giving life.
Right.
And it's got a little bit of discomfort for you, Bill. Keep them going and give them a whole new life. Could you come and help?
Yeah. You
Well,
get them
now
focused
it's
on a
on
bigger
purpose.
purpose.
It's got purpose to it, but most of the time it's our blood bank is low and we're desperately need for plasma and we're desperately need for this. So it's a we coming to you to try to get you to do something that you may not want to do. When you're doing fund development, you're looking at the long range, you're looking at the harvest picture. You no longer call them donors, but they're partners.
Okay. Yeah, it makes
And
sense.
a partner does this, Jake. It literally holds hands and they're equals.
Yep.
Look, in the nonprofit world or in the church world, it's kind of extract money from these people so I can do my thing. This says, okay, now I've got to listen closely because we are bonded and we're holding hands together. We're equals.
Yeah.
And so the equal says, I know how to do a task, a mission, whether it's the animal shelter or it's an evangelism strategy to the world. And I'm doing it with you, and your financial support and your prayer, your engagement with us is enabling us to do this. So we are equally involved.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to get you to do something you don't want to do.
Yeah, right. It's not bribery, threats, manipulation. It's we are changing the world, and this is how you can be involved in it if you want to be involved in it. But if you do get involved in it, know that you're part of this group.
And then you treat them that way.
Yeah.
And you listen to them that way, and you're thanking them, and you're not asking them always for gifts, although that's a part of it, but you're inviting them to give again to help the cause do more.
Yeah.
So accountability is high in that, because a partner that doesn't see you doing what you said you would do is going to pull money out of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, when I get hesitant about giving to a political activity, it's I don't like what the political world is doing with my money, so why should I give them more money?
Yeah.
Well, they want me to give more money so they can have more coffee, more trips, more this, more that, but they're not selling me on the mission, they're selling me on what they need.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think many people are tired of that. Well, you take this into the stewardship side of things, and now you're talking to a person that's a steward.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't own what he's got. That person has got to consider other options because there could be other things that are more pressing. And why should they give to you over something else?
Yeah.
Well, and so the whole process that the book of intentional living and giving goes through, Jake, is just helping them understand what they are as a steward, managing somebody else's affairs,
Mm-hmm.
it's in two sections. One of them is just about, let's just talk about what stewardship, lifestyle stewardship is. And once you understand what that is, I call those people authorized wealth distributors. Now I say in the second half of the book, how can I help you become an effective authorized wealth distributor? So it's points and it's keys. It's how to say no. It's how to figure out if you're being deceived by what the world is wanting you to give to. There's a chapter about money, because money is a part of it, but money is only one of 100 things that a person can give away. So it's not that it's all about money, money, money. It's just that money is a part of your life, and it's one of the tangible ways you can give yourself as an expression.
Right.
So it is. That's where I say it's a book of helping you move into the world of living joyful abundance all the time and thriving rather than just surviving. And that's why I put the book together, so that people could say, okay, here's a handbook that helps me do what I really would like to do, and I'll be transformed if I do it correctly.
Yeah. So what do you say when you're talking to somebody who feels a little, they want to be involved, they want to be partners, and maybe they know of organizations that have good stewardship, back end, responsible leadership, right? Because you don't want to give money you're not going to give money even at a church level, right? You're not going to give your money to a church if you don't believe that money's going to do what churches do: feed hungry people, take care of widows, pay the bills, that kind of stuff, right? If I stroll into a church that's 100 people and the pastor's wearing a Rolex and everybody's driving, beat up Hondas in the parking lot, we have a disconnect, right? So
you have a big disconnect, yeah.
Right. So
I think, Jake, what often happens is that a church, let's just use that as an illustration of that. Most churches sell the budget. Mm-hmm. They forget to sell their mission.
Yeah, well, that's a good point.
And so the money that you give, if you're not careful, goes to meet an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Well, I don't really like to support an Excel spreadsheet either. The organization that wrote me this morning and was wondering where I was and was intimidating me.
Yeah.
I don't like a lot of things that they're doing right now.
Right.
Well, they're doing an uphill battle to get me to renew, because they're selling me the wrong things.
Yeah, well, and as their budgets or as their income decreases, and you can almost tell from not even from very far away, that as their budgets are decreasing or their income is decreasing, their verbiage becomes a little bit more intense.
Oh yeah.
You can see the desperation growing as the finish line comes.
Jake, the book is designed for small groups in churches, or small groups any place. I mean, that's one way you can use the book. I did a complete study guide of all the chapters, and I basically outlined an entire plan for a small group leader to lead it.
Nice.
Because my observation over the years is many, many people are wandering aimlessly. They're sitting in congregations or part of churches, and they think that a gift or a meaningful participation is equal to the concert cost that they paid 3 weeks ago. Yeah, or right. I'll give a token to you because that's what it is. They're not connected to the mission and the vision because they don't know who they are.
Yeah, well, speak to that for a second, because I think it's important. There's people in the church and in any organization that is maybe strapped for cash. Maybe they're living paycheck to paycheck. How do you wrap their minds around this vision and make them, and get them, not make them, but get them passionate about supporting a particular mission that they're involved
in some ways, we go counter to the culture of the church, because the church is going to probably say, at least in our Western culture, we got to get you to give 10%. That's a big thing. It's quote tithing thing.
Yeah, right.
Tithing was strictly an Old Testament structure. Right. Now we've applied it in some ways to the new structure, but we call it 10%. That's what the word means. Mm-hmm. Tithing is 10, but they don't realize that in where it was instituted, and it was instituted with the Israeli people in their Old Testament. but it was the federal government income tax for the people at that time. And they were given 28% every year, not 10%. They had to bring tithes in twice a year and a third tithe on a third year. So when you start looking at how it worked, they were given about 28%. And what did it go through? Well, it was funding the theocracy that they lived under.
Yeah.
There was one group of people in the Old Testament that did not have land. It was called the Levites. And the Levites were funded by the contributions from the rest of the tribes who had land. And so the rest of the tribes were required to give to the Levites who took care of the religious structure, the widows and orphans, and managing the governmental operations of the Israeli people. So they were managing a theocracy. That was their job. The Levites had that job, and the only income they had was from the resources of the people. And so they instituted the tithe. And it's interesting that when you hear about the tithe, you'll hear about tithe and free will offerings.
Yeah.
Well, the free will offering today that's what the church is trying to do, is get the free will offering up to the level that they can fund the church operations. And there's quite a bit of intimidation even in giving the offering sometimes. They almost put you on a guilt trip if you don't do this right, you're failing God, you're failing yourself.
Sometimes, yeah, for sure.
Jesus Pat put that upside down when he said, to whom much is given, much is also required.
Yep.
Boy, that was not, now the lid was off on the amount. And no longer are we going to look at a person based on 10%. But if you're generous, I'm expecting 30, 40, 50, 90% out of you.
There are some entrepreneurs that have done it.
Yes, and but in Jesus's words to his disciples, he was in the temple, the Herodian temple, and he watched a lady come in and give 2 coins. And it was called the widow's mite. We've always heard the story of the gal that came in and gave her pennies. And what he said to them, she gave more than all the rest of the people because she gave it all.
Yeah.
Now, he did not chastise her for giving it because she wanted to do it. She could have kept it and lived off of it. There wasn't much there. But the fact of it is, she did it as a free will desire, not as an obligation.
Right.
Everybody else was giving out of, quote, obligation so that they would look good in their culture.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't because they wanted to. It's because if I don't give it, you're going to know about it. And I need to make sure I don't look bad in public.
Yeah. It's the front seat at the Crystal Cathedral kind of situation, right?
Yeah, that's it. So what Jesus did said, whether you're Solomon and you've got an abundance of wealth, or David who raised the money for the first temple, and when David did a dedicatory prayer in First Chronicles, he has a prayer and he says, Lord, you own everything, and we're just bringing everything that you gave us back to you.
Yep.
That was the essence of his prayer. It's in chapter 28 of that book. And it's a prayer of dedication for you own everything. Everything in heaven and earth is yours, O Lord, and you own everything. And all we're doing is serving, and we're bringing back to you what's yours. And it was free will giving that raised the money. It was not a tithe. It was free will giving.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of times people get hung up like, I don't know how much I can give. I encourage people, because I think the book of Deuteronomy has a verse about money. It's very interesting. God says to the Israelite people, I'm expecting you to give, not because I need money, but because you need to learn to put me first in all things.
Yeah.
God is not broke, and he doesn't need the stuff.
Right.
But you need to learn how to do it because it's good for you.
Yeah.
And so when you start to put that mindset together, Jake, it transformed the mindset of the people that are thinking. And I think we got a lot of stinking thinking going out there about the subject. And I just am trying to help people come out of that and say, oh my gosh, I can be on mission today. And it's not just my money, it's what I need to give from my life expectations and experience. And if a person is really struggling, I'm not going to put them on a guilt trip that they got to give.
Yeah.
Although I'm going to say, that's a blessing to you if you learn to do that, but I'm not going to put them out to you.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm not going to let a guy that's got tens of millions of dollars off easy because his stewardship is greater.
Yeah, right. I have a lady I'm coaching with that is going to absolutely love the fact that you used the word stinking thinking. You know.
Well, and I think we got to sometimes tell people that that's not the right thinking that God wants you to have. And so we need to back them up. And so, Jake, the book, and it would help in another way, is the way I used the content many times in the past was give the book to the partner, because even the partner is confused on who he's at. And when the partner starts to realize that they are stewards and it's a lifestyle and includes everything they have, their time, their talent, their treasure, whatever it is, now they're freed up to be creative in their giving, and they can do what they want to do because God's the one's going to lead them to take care of their stewardship.
Yeah.
Years ago, I was teaching this in a seminar format, and I had an executive come that had worked on selling his business so he could do ministry of helping executives. That was what he wanted to do. And he sold his business, made a nice pile of money in selling it. He could literally retire on the proceeds that he's away. And I was one of his first visits after his retirement. So you can imagine being a month or two after retirement, I'm on this new trip for the next 12 or 20 years of my life. This is going to be fun. I'm going to go to this seminar and I'm going to learn what there is over here. And he was a part of that particular audience that one weekend. We were doing executive seminars for business leadership. And at the end of a 4 or 5 hour session with him, he came up and he said, I came here with the expectation that I would do what's fun, and I was going to, fund myself as I would do this ministry to other executives. He said, but I'm leaving here to go back and start a new business. He said, I know this, that in my years of experience, my 40 years plus, I know how to make money, and I know how to make money well.
Yeah.
And I've always been generous, but now I see a different picture. And what you've told me is I need to use the talents and the skills I've got to the kingdom business.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go back and start a new business so that I can give all the proceeds away.
Yeah. So
I don't really need it. I don't
Yeah.
need money to live on, but I know what I'm good at doing.
He's going to basically duplicate what he did the first time, except this time.
He's got a different perspective.
Yeah.
And so he left there with that mind. He went back and started a different business that was different in nature of what he just sold, because he wasn't wanting to go back to his home area and compete, with his other business that he had sold generously.
Yeah.
And he probably spent another 10 years and giving probably $2 to $3 million in profits from that business. And then I saw him 10 years later on another occasion. He says, I just sold this business, and now I really do want to spend the next 10 years working with executives.
Yeah.
He said, but I know what I did was right because I'm a steward of what God gifted me to do.
Yeah.
Well, he was free. Now I didn't ever tell him how much money to give, but he was exceptionally generous with the organization I represented. And he was generous with a lot of other ministry organizations and community organizations. So he was freed up to be a lifestyle steward, managing the affairs of what he was good at doing, using his giftedness, his skill package, and so forth. Mm-hmm. Now, I think a lot of times the goal of, if people are raising money, they just want to get a large gift.
Sure.
What I want to do is get a person to think right, and then I don't care what the gift is. Now, that doesn't mean I don't challenge them. There's nothing wrong in asking. If you don't ask, you don't receive. And
make it hurt a little, No.
Well, I think what happens sometimes is that we think, in fact, my experience was the goal was to get a lot of people, a lot of guys and gals, women, couples to give $1 million each.
Sure.
And from day one, I said, well, what if they could give more? Oh, we want them to give $1 million each. It was a simple equation of 1,000 people giving $1 million equal to $1 billion.
Sure.
And I said, but to whom much is given, much is also required. What if they're capable of giving more? And that never factored into the picture. Yeah. Well, as we worked on this in another phase a little bit later, and we started realizing that generosity did not have a cap. We started seeing people commit 3, 5, 10, 30,
sure.
$40 million.
Yeah.
I know there was one gentleman in Canada that committed $100 million in his lifetime. That wasn't because we were wanting the money, and we didn't get all the money. That wasn't the goal. The goal was to help him be a good steward.
Yeah, right.
Now, when he died, I believe he's gone now, but he had already set it up. By the time he was going to die, he had established a foundation where giving could continue. So, to my knowledge, the foundation is now working on a second $100 million. Can't make him money,
Yeah.
and they know that's their responsibility and the big business of things.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean that we can all stand in line and get money from him, because he's also, that organization is pretty picky on how they decide where they're going to put the money. They feel like their stewardship needs to really do the vetting on you.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense.
Churches and nonprofits don't like the vetting. They don't like people to become snoopy.
They don't like the
It
vetting.
makes them very nervous, very, very nervous out there. But
Are they super picky about who they're going to take money from? I mean, if you were going to give them $500,000, do they really care where the $500,000 came from?
in some organizations, they would need to look and see if we're aligned. Yeah, the danger we've got in the political scene is that you're buying influence.
Oh, I see. So it's the optics of it, not so much.
It's optics, but is the person going to give you $30 million because he believes in your cause, or because he wants you to do certain things?
And that makes the difference as to whether or not your conscience will accept the money or not.
And if it's morally the right thing to do, if I cannot spend it where we agree it's important.
Fair, yeah.
And you're now simply using me as a conduit to do your thing.
Yeah.
We need to stop and rethink that. And I've been in situations with nonprofits here in the United States where it's been best to return large gifts because the influence was too strong and we felt like the influence was inappropriate.
Too many strings attached.
And that is usually as a result of conversations where the giver is not being flexible with the way the gift should be used around. In other words, they've got an agenda of their own, and I've advised other groups, you just don't take money if it's got an agenda that you cannot fulfill.
Yeah, from your mouth to some pastor's ears, right? Because I mean, it's like you've seen this happen in churches all across the world, right? Where there's
Yeah, I was on a phone call the other day with an executive pastor, and there's some people in it's church of maybe a couple hundred people, so it's not a big one.
Yeah.
But you're unhappy with what the budget represents, so they're giving designated funds, which is kind of restricting the money to be used in certain ways, and there's conditions to it. And so yesterday I said, here's how we do it. If a person wants to give to a nonprofit organization, we are not going to be a conduit to it unless that's within our approved vetting budget of what our mission program is. So we return money to people and say, here's your $500, write it directly to Samaritan's Purse or World Vision, or Crew, or the college that you're interested in. You go write the check yourself. That's not our mission.
Yeah.
And that upsets some people because they want it to come to the church as, quote, my donations to the church, but they're telling them where to send the money. Yeah. And I said, don't feel badly about sending money back. I mean, you're just telling them how to use their stewardship in a way they can use it.
Yeah, that's right.
But that doesn't mean every organization needs to be the pass-through of somebody else's desires.
No, and it's discipleship, right? Because you're trying to put the responsibility back on them and not allowing their desire to be seen giving the gift. See, I give. You see me giving? Here's the big check, Larry. It's
a teaching moment to say, we're thrilled that you're interested in World Vision or Samaritan's Purse or Salvation Army, but we only support them on special need situations, and our giving is going to these missionary causes.
Yeah.
So if you want to give to them, here's your $500 back, $1,000, and here's the address of the organization, and you can contact them. They would be glad to take your stewardship.
For those,
and that is generosity on anybody. If you do that, you're being very free with the resources.
Yeah, you're being you're teaching people, which is important for those who don't quite know. Let's say for some of the younger people who don't really know what unrestricted funds or restricted donations are. Help us understand.
Okay, well, the general fund and most Christian nonprofits, probably I'm just going to put the word Christian there, they should have a general fund that funds their operational costs.
Yep.
There's two other kinds of funds that come into the nonprofits, restricted and designated. Okay, a designated gift is we want it to go to XYZ person, and sometimes boards will say, we will honor your designation. If you want it to go to a missionary that we have on our staff, we will honor your preferencing to help that missionary. Because many people do what they call personal fund development support raising. Okay, that is a preferencing, and there's nothing wrong with preferencing because a board organization really does manage the funds, but they're honoring the preference of a partner.
Yeah.
A restricted amount says it's got to go for one thing and one thing only. So if you go to Harvard or you go to Stanford, you'll hear huge amounts of money they raise, but much of that is restricted, and it's a part of their bigger story of their endowment.
Yeah. Okay.
And I have a church that just 6 miles from me. I got to know a guy that works with one of the major financial institutions, the regional office. And I was setting up some accounts for a church at that time. And we have they were investment accounts for 60 to 90 day money, longer term money and longer term money. And he said, well, there's 3 ways you could set up those accounts. You can do the short term, and that can be controlled by the board. And you can set up a midterm. That's investments that may be working 10 years. And maybe they come from, legacy gifts and people that pass away. Sure. It could come from anything.
Yeah.
He said, I would not advise you to set up a restricted fund or a foundation for the organization, because once you put the foundation title to it, it's a restricted gift. And the restriction says that they can only spend the asset profits, not the principal.
Wow.
And he said, let me tell you what just happened. He says, I manage XYZ Church's foundation. The church went bankrupt and closed 5 years ago. The foundation continues to grow, but the church could never tap into their foundation principal. They could only use the profits on the foundation. And that was not enough money to keep the church afloat. Right. So he says, unfortunately, I'm managing money of a church that doesn't exist.
Wow. And
I'm continuing to give the money against guidelines that they set up as they collapsed, but they knew the foundation. It's got $2.5–3 million in the foundation. And he says, I continue to give it to denominational causes that they like.
Oh, okay.
But my job as a fiduciary is to distribute the assets periodically. He said, you don't want to ever set up anything that you've got restrictions around it where you as an organization cannot make prudent decisions.
Even though it's restricted, they can still distribute it outside the foundation.
They cannot use the principal to do something. They can use the profits from the investment.
So the profits themselves are unrestricted.
Right. But in that particular scenario, so when you go to a place like Harvard or Stanford or any university in the world, they got enormous foundations, and we hear about the endowments. Our political news has got a discussion about how much money Harvard's got in endowment funds, and it's billions of dollars. It's bigger than many states in the United States.
That's a lot. They've been hoarding some money.
But that is not there for paying tuitions of students.
Right.
It's sustaining the long-term outcome of Harvard, and they can use it for buildings. They can borrow against it. They can do all kinds of things. It's a huge financial mess if you're going to get yourself into it. I don't encourage organizations to set up their own foundations, because then they've got to manage the baby.
Yeah, right.
And it takes fiduciary responsibility and high-level thinking and finances. But unfortunately, sometimes churches have restricted money, and the board cannot touch the principal. it may have some rules where they could touch the profitability. But if you have a $2 million asset there and it's giving you $200,000 a year, if it's really lucky, that's all you could spend off of that resource would be the profitability of that. But the whole point of that discussion is help the organizations do what is on mission. Don't restrict them by getting it too complicated. And most organizations should say that's beyond the scope of our mission. We can't do it that way. So but that's good stewardship. Jake, it's back to the same issue. A good steward tells people yes and no. A good steward evaluates giving. There's a chapter in Intentional Living and Giving where I walk through core principles of how to give effectively. And that includes how to say no effectively. I was in a small group study.
That alone is worth the price of the book right there, Larry. How to say no.
That's in part two. So that once you become a good authorized wealth distributor, we're going to help you get there.
Yeah.
And what had happened in that particular chapter is I could have taken a different course on it, but I said, I'm wanting the people to learn how you make good decisions being a steward, not being emotionally pressured to do something that you really don't want to do.
Yeah.
As an example, in Southern California, my home base out here right now, it's very common to drive on an off-ramp and find somebody with a placard that says, I'm hungry, please feed me.
Sure.
A little aside, or if you get to a right turn lane and there they are again. I mean, they show up quite a little bit. There's even some crafty organizations that bring people to those spots, leave them for 2 hours, and they take a percentage of what they take. So they're using the visibility, the emotion, and they will deliver you and they'll move you to a different on-ramp for a different time, a different place. And they know what the good on-ramp are. Now, I don't believe everybody's doing it that way, but I mean, you talk about crafty people doing thinking that's what you got.
I would have never thought that there's, or that alone, that little tidbit alone. I mean, because I'm in Southern California, I'll never look at these people again the same way.
Well, I learned about that strategy. I was a part of one of our service clubs here about a decade ago, and we had one of the sheriff leaders come in and say, what we're trying to stop is the people that are traveling 20 miles to your off-ramp. They're being brought in by somebody else. They get to work 3 hours. They're picked up. If they do a really good job and make a lot of money, they get another off-ramp a day or two later. But there is a percentage going back to the one that delivered them. And they're not necessarily nonprofit organizations. It's scam jobs.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And so I'll take you there and I'm going to pick you up in 3 hours. And when I pick you up, I'm leaving somebody else off for the next 3 hours. And it does give you alcohol. It gives you drugs. It gives you a sense that you're doing something.
Right.
But anyway, I had this one lady and she said, well, I always carry $10 in my car and $10 or $1 bills. And I said, well, and she said, that's because when I see those people, I want to help them out. I feel badly for them.
Sure.
So I got into a little conversation. I said, are you doing it because you feel guilty or because you really want to help them? Because if you really want to help them, there's far better ways. There's organizations in our city that are set up to help people in need.
Yeah.
Food, shelter, bath, everything that you need, as well as education to get off of the train that is driving their lives crazy.
Yep.
And I said, I never give to an off-ramp opportunity because I have higher values than how I'm helping the needy in our community. And, I give, $50, $60 a month to one charity that really is good at doing that.
Yeah.
Well, they are making sure that people are fed. They're making sure that families' needs are met. They're looking out for it. They've educated themselves and they're experts in the area of helping the needy.
Yeah.
I drive by I don't think about them because I'm thinking that's the worst way I could help that person. Yeah. Because I'm not really helping them accomplish a real goal in life. I'm helping them get another fix of drugs.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't think we would have had, I don't think I've heard, I think, like your experience in nonprofits and doing all this for your entire life, it's like that's the insight that kind of stuff gives you, which it's like I would have never thought of it. Like, give the guy $5, who cares? But, and I quite frankly don't care what he does with it, if I'm being honest. It's not for me to judge, right? But now that you say it like that, I'm like, well, I didn't know there's professional people roaming around, driving homeless.
That's a common thing in Southern California too. And you don't know where the sheriff's department's figured out the network. And they were giving us little cards. They were called 211 cards. And you give a 211 card, that's what you dial to get help. And when you dial that number, you're plugged into an agency that is ready to help you with food and recovery, if that's, or counseling. I mean, they do a lot of different things. There's a network of people that know how to do it.
Yeah.
But the greatest value you can help a person on the off ramp is to get him into real long-term recovery and turn him into an effective steward. Because right now all you're doing is just moving money around. And I know that, and I there's an element where you do get some food to them. I had a gal that I used to work with, she was a CPA, Sunday afternoon, she would make sandwiches and go to the homeless shelters around the city, the parks, and just pass out sandwiches because she was very compassionate.
Yeah.
But she said, I'd never give them money because I don't know what they're going to do with it. But I'll give them a good sandwich so they can be eaten this afternoon.
Yeah.
So I think that, and that was because she was saying, Larry, you taught me how to be a good steward, and I'm not going to waste my dollar, but I can give them a good sandwich that I made. And she would go home and make 20 sandwiches, 30 sandwiches, and go and said, I want to give you something to eat because you probably need it. And she was very much into the compassion.
Yeah.
But she was doing it strategically because she did not want them to waste the money.
Right.
I think the whole point here is, as a steward, we're responsible for everything pertaining to God and holiness in our life. A good steward cannot just do it because they're cranking it out. I believe there's a faith relationship with Jesus Christ that's very important to this picture.
For sure.
I go into that in the book because it's not a technique of playing a game. It's a lifestyle change. And the lifestyle changes. And then I say, once you've got your life going in the right direction, this is who you are, and this is how you can be maximized.
Yeah.
I find people really enjoy the idea of waking up every morning on purpose.
Yeah, given the choice.
And they don't know what that purpose is.
Yeah.
So, there's a spiritual dynamic to it, Jake, definitely there. But there is a very practical side. God did not just say, I'm here to get you out of this world and take you into eternity. He says, I want you to live life as a steward.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I put the first couple here.
Yeah.
I want every couple to live like that. And we're trying to redeem what was blown in Genesis chapter 2, chapter 3 of the Old Testament.
Yeah, and that's in part what Paul talks about in his stewardship of the gospel, which is, this is the message that brings life. This is the message that brings people out of death. This is the message that needs to be spoken, and it's and that itself is a stewardship. And so it's, we have the keys to the kingdom.
You look at the Apostle Paul. Last spring, I spent 2 weeks in Greece and Ephesus, and going to all what they call the book of Acts or the book of Revelation, the churches of that particular period in Asia Minor. And you look at Paul's life. That's a good example. Here was a Pharisee, brilliant, one of the brilliant minds of the first century.
Yep.
He was trained under the number one guy named Gamaliel. He was a Roman citizen and he was a Jew at the same time from Tarsus. So you've got a guy here that's uniquely equipped, exceptionally educated. And then when he has this phenomenal conversion experience, he spends 3 years studying, realigning everything that he had already known to what he knew was going to be true in his new insight. Right. After 3 years, then he says, now I'm ready, I'm educated, now I'm ready to go spread this around. He got a little bit of rejection from the Jewish leaders in Jerusalem, but they sent him off on some missionary journeys.
Yeah.
And we are talking about it today because of what he did in Asia Minor and Greece within 40 years of Christ's life.
Yep.
Here on earth. And it was because he became an effective steward of what was entrusted to him.
Yep.
And he just kept on going. So Paul was a model. He didn't scream all the time, I'm a steward, watch how good I do. He was just doing it. And I don't think we have to go yelling about it.
Yeah.
But if we want to live a victorious, abundant life that's got hydraulics of joy, there's a way to do it. Anybody can live that life. There's people think, well, you haven't been through what I've been through. You've not been through the life experiences I've been through. I'm thinking, man, that really has very little to do with it. In fact, it's sometimes to those terrible life experiences, terrible by, I wasn't expecting to do that. Maybe it's, in my life experience, I've been released from jobs. You could call it firing 3 or 4 times. So I never planned on those.
Yeah.
But every one of those was a turning point that led me to what I should be doing.
Yeah. Right.
Well, 10 years ago, Jake, my wife died of a glioblastoma brain tumor. I wasn't really counting on that as a part of my life. My best friend was ill.
Yeah.
18 months later, she changed addresses on me. That's really all she did was change addresses. But I had to decide that even in those circumstances, it was a choice, an intentional choice I made to say, I'm going to keep on doing what I've learned how to do. And as long as I've got breath in my lungs, that's what I'm going to do. So it's a choice made. It's the book is called Intentional Living and Giving.
Yeah.
And the word intentional is very important. One thing I did shortly after her death, and I've done it every year since then, is I created 10 wills and 12 commitments. And the 10 wills is what I will do every day. Now, I have a conviction there, Jake, that if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist.
Okay.
You can fake yourself into existence. You've got to write it down. And if nothing else, once you've written down, you've got something to edit. So it's not in concrete, but it's the fact that you can look at yourself from a piece of paper and say, what is really important to me? And so my 10 wills keep me going every day. Well, they all relate to my stewardship. It's how I'm going to get up every day. It's how I'm going to use my time. It's going to be how I use my attitude. I have an attitude of gratitude perspective on things. So I'm choosing to be thankful, even though I don't want to be sometimes.
Well,
but it's a choice. That's a choice. It's not a circumstance.
Right.
And then I have 12 commitments, and it's 12. I don't know what's magic about 12. They just seem to stop there. But they're commitments that I'm going to do things. For instance, I'm a grandfather of 6 grandkids. So I'm choosing as a commitment to spend personal time with each one in a unique way every year. And sometimes, I've got to figure out how to do that because I got a 23-year-old on one side and a 10-year-old on the other. And it's 2 girls in the middle of all that.
Yeah.
So everything has got to be done, but it's a commitment that I choose to figure out a way to engage my life and their life. And so the last year or two, I've been taking them to unique plays together. It gives us time to be together. Grandpa took them there. They're fun things that I already know are going to be good shows to see. So I'm not taking them to some of the trash that's out there.
Yeah.
But it's still a way for me to engage with them. And I want each one of them to remember who I am and what I'm about and what I believe in.
Yeah.
So, but that's a commitment that I've got to program into my life. But that's a stewardship commitment because I could say, well, let the parents raise them. I raised the parents, so I'm going to let the parents, take care of that problem.
Yeah.
So life is full of ways that we make decisions based on our understanding of our stewardship.
Yeah.
So that's the essence of what the book is all about. But it's what life is all about. And I just put it into a guidebook format so that, people listening to your podcast or anybody else can, people say, how do you get it? Well, you can go to LarryO'Nan.com and I can send you a copy. But why don't you go to Barnes & Noble or Amazon.com or Books A Million or any place you want to buy books, a Christian bookstore or a non-Christian one, and just ask for Intentional Living and Giving.
Do those bookstores still exist?
Huh?
Do those bookstores still exist?
There are a few of them around. I've read into a few. I know of one. It's got more Christian art than it does books in it.
Yeah.
It's got paraphernalia.
Sure.
But it's, the stuff they get, but most of the time, worldwide, if you go to Amazon, they're going to get it to you some way because it's in their inventory.
Well, we got young people that listen to this podcast, so you're going to want to go to Amazon.
Yeah, that's
or
I go
Barnes
to
and Noble.
Amazon. I'm Amazon Prime myself, and I
Yeah.
buy. It saves me gas money because it's delivered within 4 hours to 24
Yeah.
hours.
And we still have a Barnes and Noble down the street, so that works.
I've got one in my city too. At that's a regional game to play,
Yeah.
but you can get it there. I mean, it depends on what you're wanting to do. But I think if people say, okay, if I can get a hold of this and get the guidebook, it helps them. But once they get a hold of it, or if you're older, and say, that's a lot what I believe, but I've got grandkids and I've got adult friends in their 30s and 40s that I've seen are going aimlessly through life. Can I give them a copy of that and say, this book might help you know how to focus where you really want to go?
Yeah.
It might ignite abundance in your life. And I encourage you to read this because that's been really helpful to me. So it's a good giveaway without being preachy.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So, there's a lot of different ways that if the church wanted to use it in a small group or something like that, there's, they can get that through my website and so forth. But Jake, it's something that I got into, and part of my commitment says I will help other people become effective lifestyle stewards.
And if somebody wanted to have you come to their church or their organization and teach it in person, you said you're in Southern California.
I'm dialoguing with the church right now that wants me to come in and do 2 or 3 weeks on the basics of stewardship. Now, what they're wanting to do is launch. I think it's Peace University with Dave Ramsey.
Okay.
It's an excellent organization. It's really good on tactics of managing money. But what they're concerned about is they don't want to just dive into the tactics and people miss the biblical core foundation. Tactics is important to be a good steward.
Yeah.
Okay, we need to have management of time, talent, and treasure, and that's part of your talent. It's your treasure.
Yeah.
So yes, you need either. There's 3 organizations that have got excellent stuff. Peace University is outstanding. You can do it online. Anybody could go online and find Peace University. There's a group called Compass out of Orlando, Florida, that does the same thing. A group called, well, those are 2 of them I think of right out. And then the other one is, can't think of it all. But there's places to get help in those areas, but you don't want to skip the foundation. There's great stuff on using money wisely. But if you're not careful, that's going to be a tactic, and you want to have the foundation behind the tactic.
Yeah.
And so I'm a real avid believer in those kind of classes and courses because they will definitely help people. But I want them to also understand there is a bigger picture behind the scenes than just how you manage the money that's been coming to you. Because this is not about money; it's about life.
Well, there are the weapons right there. If you can have a sword and not know how to use it, right? So you can have Financial Peace University, or you can have any of Dave Ramsey's stuff, but the underlying foundation of what you're building, that is the skill.
I encourage everybody to look at that carefully and take the steps that is advised. I think some people skip over the biblical foundation behind it, and Dave Ramsey's stuff is as biblical as Compass and Crown.
Yeah.
It's that they're all based on biblical understanding of what this means. So David has probably taken it to the broader picture of the world in a unique way because of the business enterprise that he runs, and he does an excellent job of that.
Yeah.
So, but you're working on tactics to do something well. But how about tactics to also know how to make wise decisions so you can say no at the off-ramp? Or you can vet a nonprofit organization and say, I'm not giving to them because I don't feel comfortable and I don't align with this particular part of their philosophy. And you can learn all that, but you got to do your homework and vetting. And I've discovered the larger the gift, the more vetting they're going to do.
Yeah.
It's easier to, give to a nonprofit, a little bit monthly and just keep them alive. But when you really start to get into it, it's a very different story.
Yeah, and I think your wisdom in your books and intentional living and giving and intentional faith and all the things that you've done over the span of your lifetime, Like that's wisdom working for nonprofits, raising money, doing, having, 100 people under you at any given time. I think that's wisdom that I think young people right now could gain a lot from. I think we're talking about stewardship. Your wisdom in this is that stewardship. I think you mentioned it when you're taking care of your granddaughters and your daughters. It's like you could hand it off and go, hey man, they're not my kids. I don't need to raise them. But as we get older and grayer and we have more life experience and we have all this wisdom that's built up through trial and error and suffering and successes, it is bestowed upon us to pass on that wisdom as much as humanly possible to whomever will glean upon it. And
and our job is to make it available.
Yeah.
So I figured I'm still breathing. I'm still young at heart. I just walked for 2 miles before we had our visit today, and I think I'm going to keep on doing what I'm doing.
Yeah. Will you make the intentional living and giving into a course or an audiobook?
There is some discussion about an audiobook that the publisher usually does a year or so into a project.
Mm-hmm.
It's available. In fact, I'll do this for anybody that wants it. If you're into digital reading and you like it on Kindle or whatever your choice of tool is out there, if you go to larryonan.com, you can click on it and get a digital download of the entire book.
Okay.
And you can get into it in 10 minutes if you want to go that route. It's just larryonan.com.
Yeah.
My name has got an apostrophe between the O and the N, except on my address.
Yeah, right.
And the world doesn't like mixing up alphabet and characters.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's larryonan.com, and you'll be right to the website. You'll see the book. And I think on the very front page, you'll say, if you want a complimentary download, click on it. And there's a few things you got to do to get that. But
Sure.
But that's another way. I mean, digital is a way for you to get the book and see what it's got in it.
Yeah. Well,
Naturally, getting the books from the bookstores is another easy way. And a lot of people still like to hold the book in their hand.
Well, I say do this. I mean, I'll put all the links in the show notes and on social media as we're promoting this episode. And then I think if I could encourage anybody who's going to listen to this now and in the future, go download it. You're going to leave probably your name and your email address or something, right?
That's what you do.
Yeah, so go download it, and as you're reading it, go to Barnes and Noble and buy, or go to Amazon and buy a hard copy.
You can get that hard copy, and that's a touchy-feely thing. This is what they do is they get this kind of thing, and that's it's an honest-to-goodness book. It turns the pages like an old-fashioned book, but I had one gal says, I like to read a book because I like to smell books.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yep.
I carry books on my tablet because it lets me read on airplanes, and I'm only carrying one tool, and I can pick 5 or 6 books that I'm working on. So
yeah. I mean,
that's a way.
It comes in handy, and if they buy a hard copy, they're participating in pushing,
spread the news,
spreading the news.